Serverless Office Hours. How's everybody doing? All right, excelente. If you'll notice, I told you David Richardson was going to be here with us. I'm so happy. David, how are you? You'll notice this is not David Richardson sitting with us. This is a panicked look that she looked back at me. David Richardson is joining us very soon. He's hustling over from another session. But until then, we have Jordan and Julian, of course. Julian. So,
hello, nice to be here.
Just to help you all out, Julian and I are basically twins.
Yep.
He's the one with hair, okay?
Yep.
Just so you know.
Not much of a difference between us. So if you get confused, Julian on your right.
There you go. There you go. Exactly. So welcome to Serverless Office Hours. We do this every day at reInvent at 11 o'clock. And joining us today is Jordan.
Hi,
Jordan, tell us a little about you.
Well, first, before I tell you about myself, I'm wondering, what's the deal with the ice?
Ah, the ice. I'm glad you asked. So let me tell you something. This morning I came in. If you know anything about me, I do drink Diet Dr. Pepper, and I drink massive quantities of it. And I needed, they're telling you to hold your mic close to your mouth. So just, yes.
Okay.
Nobody heard that. So I needed ice. And so I asked for a glass of ice. And this is what they brought me. If you can see that on the camera. This is my ice. Nobody else's. So yes, this Julian is
I can't even have one.
So, but I want to make a call out to the tech team and the service team that have been supporting us here. Yes,
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They are killing it for us. We love it, and a little bossy, I'm not going to lie. So tech team has been really controlling us. So with that, let's get to you, Jordan. You're here with the Bug Bash.
Yes.
Tell us about the Bug Bash. What is AWS Bug Bash?
So AWS Bug Bust is a competition
But wait a minute, Bug Bust.
Bug Bust.
I was saying Bash.
Well, a Bug Bash is a thing.
Okay, good.
So
all right,
we'll get
good.
to that too.
This is Bug Bust.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
We can get to that also. So
Computer bugs, not like crawling bugs.
yeah, so not the creepy crawlies you
Okay,
see.
just checking. We've got the
wandering
right
around.
person. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So AWS Bug Bust is a competition for Java and Python developers globally to fix as many bugs as possible. It gamifies the concept of a bug bash that you just mentioned earlier.
Well done. Well done.
Yes.
Okay.
Professional.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what are we doing with it here at reInvent?
So at reInvent, we are making an attempt at a Guinness World Record for the world's largest bug fixing challenge.
Nice.
That is cool.
It's awesome.
Nice. Okay.
So we want developers who are here at reInvent or developers who are at home. You don't have to be at reInvent to participate in this challenge. It runs until 2 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow, Thursday.
Okay.
So anyone who visits bugbust.aws and creates a profile, they can log in, fix a bug. Once they fix a bug, they'll be a part of this Guinness World Record. We'll email them out a certificate. And what's even cooler is every time you fix a bug, you get points.
Okay.
The more points you get, you receive a prize.
All
And the
right.
person with the most points at the end of the event tomorrow will receive $1,500 in cash. And anyone who's here or not here is eligible for those prizes. So you guys at home, visit bugbust.aws.
Eric, should we just start doing that now?
Well, I was just thinking I'm going to cancel David
$1,500,
and go start busting bugs. So yeah, that's good. No, I'm not going to do that.
So Guinness World Records, like seriously, there's literally a Guinness World Record attempt here for busting bugs for Python and Java.
Absolutely.
I think that's amazing. Actually, I will say I have a Guinness World Record at being part of reInvent. Seriously, the chicken wing eating competition that they have at Midnight Madness? Before I even joined AWS, I was part of that. I think it was 2018 or something. Just because we were in the wrong line, and there's a long line to get in the keynote, there was a shorter line. We joined that, got whisked off around left into the chicken wing eating competition, and I was part of the Guinness World Record for eating chicken wings.
So you're an accidental Guinness Book of World Records.
My kids were so proud.
I'll bet. All right, so tell me, who can participate?
So anyone can participate. Okay. So if you know Java or Python programming languages, sign up, participate today.
Okay.
You can be just a beginner also. There are bugs that are worth 1 point that are a little more simple to fix.
All right. Those are us.
Yeah. If you're an expert, you could also go after the 5-point bugs that are a little more difficult.
So you've sort of created some bugs that people just come in and can fix at different difficulty levels, and it's all part of joining the fun.
So we didn't create them. These are real bugs in open source code repositories.
So you're actually doing good for humanity by fixing bugs.
Good.
Yeah.
Even
so your
better.
bug fixes get contributed back to the open source community after the event. And you're helping out not only the Guinness World Record, but these open source community maintainers will receive your bug fixes.
That is amazing. What is the URL again? To join
URL. It's bugbust.aws. So that's bugbust.aws.
I love the concentration. That's how I do when I'm coding. Am I spelling this right? E-R-I-C. Got it. Okay. All righty. Well, great. Thanks for coming on and tell us about that. Excited. Man, I want to be part of it. And it's Guinness. I think you're saying Guineas over there.
Oh, well, I'm from the UK. We're closer to Ireland, so, you know.
So, all right. Well, yeah, exactly. So, okay. Well, next up, I think he's almost ready. David, are you ready? All right. We're getting a thumbs up. I don't do thumbs up, but whatever. So he's coming to join us here in just a second. And would you take the ice with you?
Absolutely.
You're awesome. But remember, that's my ice. Don't just give it to anybody. Okay. Awesome.
Cheers. Thanks,
Thank you.
Jordan. Well, really appreciate it. So yeah, while David's sort of coming up, Eric, what else is going on in reInvent today, maybe in the whole world of serverless? What are you doing today?
Well, I had a session I've already done on CI/CD.
Excellent.
We're talking about CI/CD and serverless. Come on in, David. We're going to have you come in and sit down.
Hi, David.
You're stuck between us.
Excellent.
This was a surprise I didn't tell you about. So
the DA sandwich.
and then I'm going to be doing, so I'll be at Serverless Espresso booth most of the afternoon. So yeah.
Excellent.
So, well, David, welcome. I'm thrilled to have you. This is going to be fun. As you know, we have met before. Obviously, I work for you. But I want to ask you, do you remember the first time we met?
Well,
There's going to be a story here.
Two different angles to
I want to
this.
hear how you
Okay. So here's how I remember it, okay? I was the nice one in the story. So, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, yes.
So when I started at AWS, Chris Munns hired me, Jay hired me, so that's how you blame. And I had come to AWS for the first week because I live in Colorado. I came to Seattle, and I had dress up shirts. I really did have dress up shirts. I have this same shirt. It's of course bigger, yeah. So I really feel like you shouldn't have said that. But so anyway, I had a T-shirt on my last day. I was going to fly out, and it said, and it was a swag shirt, okay, and it said, because you can't always blame Canada. Okay, that's what it said. I didn't know you were from Canada.
I'm not from Canada.
So, well, okay, but I didn't know you were, yeah, okay. I remember, and Chris called me and said, hey, don't go to the airport. Come, I want you to meet DRR, which is you. And so if you don't know, we call him DRR internally. I don't know if everybody knows that. Was that a secret?
It's live now.
I'm sorry, sir.
The non-exclusive T-shirt. Sharing my secret code name.
And the Sev too. Yeah. So anyway, I walked in, I sat down across from you, and I remember you were very quiet, and you just kind of did this.
Well, I think that's because you didn't realize everybody else in the room was from Canada.
I know, there's a lot of things I don't realize. So Chris later told me, he literally called me and said, yeah, you need to burn that shirt. So it wasn't, so there's more to the story. It wasn't 2 weeks later, I had committed to a conference in Moscow, and I flew to Moscow, and in the middle, I had to open, I did it. I did a public S3 bucket in an Amazon account. Oh. That's a no-no, okay? There's never a reason to have a public bucket. Public objects, not bucket.
Good tip.
And so they created a Sev2. They paged Chris. He never got it. They paged a Jay Nair, and he ignored it, I'm pretty sure. And threw me under the bus. He's giving me dirty looks right now, but I'm on stream, so he won't come in here.
Yeah.
So, and then they paged you.
Uh-huh.
And you called, who'd you call?
Dougal.
What's that?
Dougal?
Why would I?
Dougal. Yeah,
No, I'm sure I knew better than to call Ajay.
Yeah, because Ajay had already ignored it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so you called Dougal, and here's what Dougal said to me. And he literally called and said, yeah, he's ready to fire you. It's 2 a.m. in Moscow, and I'm panically getting this call. And he said, he's ready to fire you. You need to shut it down now. So that's our meeting.
So, so do you want?
I want the truth. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
but if it makes me look good.
Yeah, it's probably too good. So we should instead go back to
That's
that.
harder than you think.
Burn the T-shirt, because that was the initial reaction. Like, it was as though all hellfire came down upon me, and because public buckets are that much of a no-no.
Right.
The reality is, I thought you were part of a test to see if I would react properly. And I was really impressed that somebody that new to the company would already be poking at it. So job well done.
There we go. Thank you very much. Yeah. See, Jay didn't do that.
Yeah, well,
all right, we're done picking on Jay. Yeah, he's giving us dirty looks.
Really?
Well, no.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But you have a little more power than that. So, all right. So we called you here today. We're going to ask you some questions. These are. I actually spent a good part of yesterday asking people, what would you? So I guess what I'm saying is these aren't my fault. So Julian is more responsible than I am.
You've had enough blame on your shoulders already in the start of the stream. And also, because we're streaming live, send in your questions. We're on Twitch, we're on AWS channel. So yeah, send us your questions over here and Eric will bring them up.
Should the first be, does Eric know about the Amazon leadership principle relating to ownership?
No, that's the one I've skipped. Yeah,
that's going to go in his performance review.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So, all right, first question. And this is probably the most important one. Why does the Sam Squirrel scare you like a Bond villain?
I'm not unique in this, am I? Like,
I think you are.
I think a lot of people.
Those were your exact words, like a Bond villain.
Well, so I think before the pandemic, I watched this cult UK TV show, Utopia. Which, if you haven't seen it, it's definitely not safe for work. It's sort of Tarantino level violence, but most of the violence is committed by an assassin dressed in a bunny costume.
Oh my gosh.
And whenever I see the Sam Squirrel, I'm like, he's so happy something diabolical is happening here. So it's just gut level.
I almost wore it for this session.
I was afraid you would.
It's right there. So I can maybe switch out.
Well, maybe they could show you dancing in it later on.
Yeah, I told them, because they want me to dance, I told them with my knees and my weight, I have one good dance left in me.
Okay, well, we'll get it on film so it can live forever.
I think it should be with you, against you, in DDR. So, DRR and DDR.
I have to go.
Here's the time. Okay, all right, so let's get a little more serious questions. So, what has been your favorite, and this doesn't have to be this year, or maybe this year and in previous years, but I want to know what your favorite release is so far. It's not me asking, it actually is me, but that's a question we've had. So what's your favorite serverless release?
That's a little bit like saying which child is your favorite.
I get that, yes.
So I kind of have to cover the spectrum.
Okay.
It was really exciting to see in Adam's keynote yesterday the announcement about serverless MSK.
Yes.
I think that's going to be really neat. So people no longer have to kind of think in instances when they use Kafka. And also the new on-demand addition to Kinesis data streams.
Yes.
So you can stop having to care about shards and managing that. So I think the way we bring serverless capabilities to existing products is always really cool. Within Lambda, I think earlier this year, adding support for Graviton as a way to run your functions.
Yes.
It's fantastic to see I think we're saying sort of up to 34% cost, price performance improvement for customers. And that's really just a simple recompile, which is getting simpler every day with the growth of the ARM ecosystem.
Just how precise he is, up to 34. I'd be like,
up to 34. Well, I just gave my talk yesterday.
What I like about the Graviton part of it is we talk about recompiling, but that's only for languages that really do need to be recompiled. So things like Node and Java, it's literally flipping a switch.
Yeah.
And the ARM ecosystem is coming on leaps and bounds, and I've tested it extensively with Node and Python, flip the switch, job done, 34% price performance. It's 20% cheaper anyway, regardless if your performance isn't better. And you get faster CPU, could mean less memory, and it's just a no-brainer. Yeah.
Yep. It might be cheaper, but at least it's faster.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, I love it.
And then maybe two others that I talked more extensively about in my talk yesterday. So watch that on the stream. One was last Friday. We added the ability with Lambda event source mapping to put a filter in so that now if it doesn't match, your code doesn't have to drop that on the floor. We'll do it for you.
Yeah.
So radical, I think like up to 70% cost savings for some workloads.
Yeah, that was always good. I've done plenty of streaming out, and if it's this, then if it's this, and I'm invoking Lambda every time for that. So I was pretty excited about that one as well.
And then the final one, which has kind of been well over a year in the making, was the new step functions visual workflow builder. I have to admit, I didn't quite know what to think of some of the early step functions before I joined the org, but a real epiphany for me was seeing a demo that the DA team did that was like, wow, I had no idea you could do that with step functions, but only based on your deep knowledge of Amazon States language.
Yep.
And so now being able to do that visually, I think is going to be fantastic.
Well, and you take that, and if you look in there, and then the SDK integration that comes right in there, it blows that world open for you. And because one of the things I talk about a lot is only use Lambda functions when you need Lambda functions. It should be doing business logic. Should not be, and Jay's very famous for saying, only transform, never transport with Lambdas. And that's true. And this is the door that opens that.
Did you just say Lambdas?
I didn't say that as far as Chris. Chris, you see Chris come flying in. He's attacking.
Yeah, we
Lambda functions. So.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
I really like
very
it.
on message of you.
There you go.
The Workflow Studio, I've been speaking to people when we were doing Service Espresso, and they were impressed of the sort of discovery of what you can do with step functions rather than Amazon States language. It's all fine, but you sort of need to know in advance what you're going to do. And when you've got it on the side, then you go a Lambda function and then a choice state, and it just maps it out. And you go, if one a yes and a pass state and a branching and retries, and you sort of work out, I can do retries and I can do error handling just built into the console, and then it's like, oh wow, it's sort of basically have an application, and maybe I've written Lambda functions, and then you realize, I can read and write from DynamoDB directly, so I don't need a Lambda function for that. And it's amazing the sort of lights were going off of how you can build these pretty complex applications, literally just in the console, and then export it out, use it as infrastructure as code, and they've done a really good job. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, I think that discovery aspect coupled with what Eric pointed out, where we went from before the SDK integration about 60 to 70 APIs supported to now like 9,000 APIs. So being able to search and discover and then interact with is super powerful.
Well, and when you pick one, they prompt you with at least the bare minimum to get that working. So you're not having to, but then you highlight and there's the documentation. I mean, I can't agree with you. I think that's probably one of my most exciting ones this year. And it's really funny because now as DAs, we go back and look at applications we built and we go, that could be in step functions. I'm gonna have to rebuild that. And so it's been a lot of fun.
So Talia Nassi presented a nice little demo of the Workflow Studio in the talk yesterday.
She did. I saw that and she's knocked it out of the park. And it shows that just that quick building. I'm one, if you know anything about me, I talk about infrastructure as code all day long. That is one of the few places where I say start in the console. That's the place, because there's the template right there. You drop it into SAM, because we all use SAM, and there you go, or CDK. So all right, so here's a broad stroke, vague, and it's on purpose. Where do you see serverless in 5 years?
Everywhere.
And go.
In one word, everywhere. I think part of why it's hard to answer is I think AWS has been serverless from the very start.
Yeah.
Our first two products that we launched, Simple Queue Service and S3, are the epitome of serverless. Especially S3, if you think about how people used storage up until then, it was about hard drives and servers and the network to get there and whatever sort of protocol you needed to be able to access that storage and managing replacement drives and like massive amounts of infrastructure. And now literally you paid per gigabyte and you could have a single byte, you could have petabytes, and all was flexible and scalable, and you never had to carry about any of that. And so I think in AWS, we'll continue to provide that type of serverless experience across a whole bunch of things. And it's why I was so excited about like the MSK serverless launch yesterday. So I think you'll continue to see a whole bunch of AWS offerings be serverless in that way. And then I think with things like serverless compute, like Lambda, really what we're going to do is just keep making it easier to use so that developers, builders, operators, we call builders anybody who's involved in making and running a system. We want to help builders be as agile as possible. Yep. So we're going to keep investing in that. We'll simplify that experience, regardless of whether you're a traditional software engineer or IT platform owner, or you're a web dev or somebody who's new to learning how to code. So we'll focus on agility. We'll also keep expanding the set of workloads that it can support. I actually forget when Lambda launched. Was it
7 years ago?
Yeah. What was the timeout?
7 years ago, 2014, reInvent 2014.
No, timeout was,
was it 30 seconds?
Yeah, I think so, something like that.
Yeah.
Or 1 minute?
On Lambdas. What was it in where we're hitting
release?
the
1 minute.
There you go.
And so we brought that up to 15 minutes. Yep. And, we'll keep expanding that. Initially, the footprint was pretty small. Last year, we added the ability to have a 10 gigabyte function with multiple cores. So we'll keep expanding that performance window.
And you did a pre-announcement.
That's true.
So tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah. So one of the things that we see customers do with serverless, especially Lambda, is apply compute to data. That's often one of the classic stages of adoption customers go through. And so we've been enhancing your ability to process data. Last year, that's a big part of why we raised it up to 10 gigabyte functions. Yep. And why we also increased the package size when we launched function images to 10 gigabytes. So you could bring things like ML models as part of that computation. Last year, we also added the ability for a Lambda function to work with an EFS file system. Yes. So you can work across really large and shared data sets. And so what I pre-announced yesterday that we'll be launching early next year is the ability to provision temp storage or ephemeral storage of up to 10 gigabytes.
Got it.
And it'll perform sort of like the speeds of EBS storage, and you just pay what you provision. So if you provision 100 bytes, that's what you get. Provision up to 10 gigabytes, that's what you get and you pay for.
Yeah,
wow.
And that's really something that I know customers have been asking about. And it's funny, beforehand it may not have caught people out, not in a bad way, but with 10 gig functions and 10 gig of memory, people are now going, well, now I need to download my machine learning model or some PyTorch or even a file to process. And so, that's amazing. And I like it that it's just simple. It's sort of more temp storage. You've obviously got EFS, which is great for sharing across multiple functions. But you just need more storage space, job done. So
I think one of the most common misperceptions of serverless, and especially Lambda, is it's for small things. And when you think about, like rapid concurrency of scale up, 10 gigabyte functions, access to large EFS file systems, and now large temp, like you basically have something that's faster than the fastest supercomputer of probably not much more than a decade ago, right there on demand within hundreds of milliseconds.
Well, even if you think of it just using some of the figures, the sort of burst concurrency in some of our bigger regions is 3,000. With 10 gig of memory, you get 6 virtual CPUs. So you literally have 18,000 CPU cores at your disposal in milliseconds. And you could run it for 10 milliseconds and shut it down. I mean, that is incredible.
It's an interesting balance watching the power come up, the storage come up, the ephemeral staying, right? And still being ephemeral, still being paid for what you use, right? But having that instant power and going away. So very cool. So
when you're talking about the future of serverless in 5 years' time, what are your sort of thoughts on, well, if serverless is going to be everything, some people push back a bit on us and go, well, then it becomes a bit meaningless and doesn't mean anything. And I do struggle with that because I think of that as like cloud, where people were also like, well, cloud is going to be meaningless, it's going to be everything. So because we work sort of in a product organization called serverless, but everything is going to be serverless, what would you say to people who get a bit mystified and maybe annoyed by the term serverless?
I'm not a purist. I think the world and the cloud are gray, and our goal, really is to help customers solve problems. And the way I think about the mission of serverless, the goal with serverless, is to be the fastest way our customers can build their ideas into applications, while also having the lowest total cost of ownership. And that includes both kind of the core obvious infrastructure costs, but also their engineering costs, because it's really expensive to hire good software engineers, to hire good IT operators, and an application can live for decades. And it's not uncommon to see 80% of your cost is maintenance. So we kind of always look under that lens of, are we helping customers build fast with low cost of ownership? And then we use that to sort of follow serverless tenants to see how we can give them capabilities. So I think the idea of, let's keep reducing the maintenance that you have to put into things. Let's keep reducing the amount of kind of distributed systems goo you have to know to be able to work on stuff is a constant, and we'll keep improving. But we're also completely open to the idea that there are times we need to give you a little bit of control. So that was kind of the idea behind provision concurrency that we launched a few years ago. And it was a very passionate debate in the team and with some customers, where a lot of people were like, that's not serverless. And I was the one really pushing for that. And my mental model was, look, if you really love the overall Lambda experience, the way you can define and package a function very simply, in a zip file, and then we'll just run it, and we'll keep doing the software maintenance, we'll do the security patching, we'll do the updates. But right now, the speed with which we can spin up when your traffic comes in isn't meeting your business need. I don't want to have to tell you, sorry, you have to abandon the entire platform, go somewhere else. Instead, we wanted to be able to say, well, okay, you're ahead of where we are right now. We'll give you a control that's very precise about run it at this level. And we'll actually make that flexible. Like, you can burst above, you can use auto scaling to follow it. But at the end of the day, we thought, if everything else in serverless is working well for that use case, but it's just that one performance criteria, let's let somebody control that. We're not slowing down on improving performance, though. Like, we've radically improved our ability to scale up. We keep reducing cold start latencies. So my hope is, over time, fewer and fewer customers need to use that knob, but they've stayed on serverless the whole time. So that's just an example of sort of how I think we'll continue to evolve, where we will have specific controls for customers who need, control over one aspect of the product, while simultaneously trying to keep winning more and more pure serverless workloads.
And maintain the simplicity as well, because it's got to be accessible from the smallest single Lambda function going to literally millions of concurrent Lambda functions. Your total cost of ownership point in your keynote session was actually really interesting, because initially I was thinking, when anybody ever talks about total cost of ownership, it's sort of who's selling what, and you can always gain the system for total cost of ownership. Now, what I really liked what you did is you had a rate. I won't go into the whole story you built to.
It was way too long.
It was great. It was interesting. That's what I'm saying. I really suggest you watch it. But the point was how to think about total cost of ownership. And your point, not to put words in your own mouth, but it was all about people forget about all the stuff they do on premises, or even on EC2, or maybe in containers. And with serverless, a lot of that goes away. And when people are comparing, function costs versus an EC2 instance, they're missing out on a whole bunch of things that are going on. So I like the advice that was given is, here's some things that you need to think about when you're doing total cost of ownership, to not make it fair, but to really understand that.
To make it real. To get a true understanding.
A lot of it is just sort of being a curious engineer. And part of why I talked about it the way I did is, I think some of the misperceptions people have today about the TCO of a serverless workload are very similar to misperceptions they had in the early days of the cloud. So I've been fortunate to be with AWS for a long time. And I remember when we were first talking with people about like EC2 or S3, they'd say, wow, like that price per instance hour per gigabyte sounds really high. Like, I have this price on premise. But if you talk with them, they're like, well, yeah, I buy the servers. Like, that's the price I'm looking at. Well, what about the data center? Oh, that's somebody else's cost center. What about the data techs who work in there? Well, that's a different cost center. What about the security team? Different cost center. And so that idea that often you don't see all of the costs concentrated together in less integrated products, is one of the challenges of helping people understand their cost in a more integrated product. So I think it's just natural in the evolution of serverless that we need to help people look at that. And the nice thing is, we're not alone in that. You wouldn't trust us if we were the only ones talking about it. So there's a really nice white paper from Deloitte up on the website that we can link to. And then lots of others have looked at it as well. So, I think really it's just, keep asking that one more question. Sometimes when we do outages or operational events, we talk about 5 whys, and just keep asking why. In this case, keep asking what else is the cost in there.
Excellent. All right. So we're throwing you some softballs, I think. We're going to throw you a little harder one.
Only if you're wearing the squirrel suit. Only if you're wearing the squirrel suit.
I'll do it.
Okay.
All right. So here's a question. It's kind of interesting, and you can kind of scope this how you want because you're the boss. But what release, and it doesn't have to be this year, or it can be, what release didn't make it? And the follow-up on that is, what is the prioritization process when we say this, yes on this, no on this? How do you think of that in the big picture?
Well, I'm not going to take the bait on releases that didn't quite make it. But I will say there's more than usual stuff that's still in the works that we couldn't quite get out this year. So definitely look forward to a very exciting 2022.
Yep.
We did pre-announce a few things, like the larger ephemeral storage, and it's also a preview version of both the serverless MSK and on-demand Kinesis data streams. So I think, more importantly, how do we prioritize?
Yeah.
So it's continuous, it's relentless, it's super painful, because we do have so many ideas about how we can help simplify the experience, help expand the set of workloads you can cover, reduce costs, improve security. So, a few things go into it, but really it boils down to something as simple as the feedback we get from customers, whether that's at reInvent, through our customer advisory board meeting, through the serverless heroes, through the work you all are constantly doing out in the field, talking with customers. And so we'll use that. And, especially what we try to do is look not so much at the proposed solutions, because we're all engineers and we speak in solutions, but at the problem statements. Like, what are you actually trying to accomplish? Because many times with serverless, it's sort of a reinterpretation of how people have solved problems in the past. Yeah. So we kind of put all that in the hopper. We focus on customer problems. Then within that, we sort of focus on the things that really only AWS can do. Like, if a customer can do it, it's maybe a little hacky. That may be a slightly lower priority, while we're starting with the things that, until we do this, no customer can do it. And then the usual sort of, well, what do you think you can do? I think I can do. And then just a lot of tears.
Shirt sizes, yeah. Well, kind of going on that, and you alluded to this a little bit. Sometimes we get, a customer say, I need this. Yep. How often do you look at it and go, I don't think that's what you really need. I think what you really need is this, which is going to take us a little longer to do, but I think that's better. So sometimes we're trying to educate customers, say there's a better way to do that. You got to trust us on that. How often does that come up?
I think it's quite common, but let me explain what I mean by that.
Okay.
So, one of the things that I've loved about the Amazon culture is that we're very humble. We don't take we know best, just do what we do. Right. And you can see that in, our normal approach as well. How do you want to do it? Okay, well, we've got one way we can help you. Somebody else says they want to do the same thing a slightly different way. We've got some other options. But we also really just love engaging with customers. So that's why I said, most of us know as engineers, we sort of default to solutioning, I need a blue widget that goes 32 miles an hour and can carry a cold beverage. Okay, well,
what do you think?
We're in the desert.
Yeah.
Well, what are you trying to do? Well, I don't want to get dehydrated. Okay, well, maybe there's a different way I can solve it. So, that conversation is really to sort of explore why what constraints is the customer working within? What are they trying to do? While also thinking about all the other customer conversations we've had. So if we can see a common solution, that helps us solve a lot of customers' problems, we'll focus on that.
That's an interesting thing just to tip on. Sorry, Eric, I
you
jumped straight in. I got excited. Is your comment that you just mentioned about that a number of customers.
Yeah.
And it's not actually because you're a big customer and you want one feature that you're going to demand it. It's actually going to be if you're even a small customer and there are a number of small customers with the same problem. I don't know how the prioritization works, but that actually is probably going to be prioritized more because it's going to help the biggest number of customers. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's the just raw joy of getting to work with customers across the whole spectrum, from small, growing fast, from niche to big, because they're all sort of exploring the same space, but with a diversity of perspectives. And so we get the benefit of hearing a lot of those and then being able to synthesize that into what we think we can do in the product.
That comes down to something you said earlier. The culture is a humble culture, but we have a lot of perspective. We have a huge amount of, so when we come out and say we think this is best, it's from a vast amount of perspective, and so I like that a lot.
And there's something as well that I think customers maybe, or even people in AWS don't sort of quite realize, that people often get very focused on the features and the knobs and levers and all the new things we announce. And sort of sometimes, they don't have visibility on the continual improvement that's literally happening behind the scenes.
Yes.
We're privy to some of the operational emails that come out, and it's incredible to see where someone has updated a library in some code, and that has reduced CPU usage for, I don't know, I'm just picking an example, but some logging library. And that means that we're able to do a number of things. We could have fewer hosts, which means we pass that the cost savings on to customers, or it means cold starts. We've shaved off 10 milliseconds of cold starts, and all under the hood using Lambda and other serverless services. They're just continually improving. And sometimes sometimes customers call us up and say, my Lambda function used to run for 10 seconds, now it's running 8 seconds. What's wrong? And you're like, nothing's wrong. This is why you use serverless.
This is what it is.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We spend a stunning amount of our engineering and product energy on those things that are invisible to the customer. And I'll give huge kudos to the Lambda team, which has really embraced that as part of their internal engineering culture. And so they do this beautiful thing where sometimes more than one time a week, somebody will send out a note that will be, you've probably seen some of these, literally, hey, I was working with the Java GC, and here's a way that I found to shrink the 99.99th percentile latency by 10 milliseconds or something. I mean, that's a huge amount. Sometimes it's only by a millisecond. And that takes weeks, sometimes months of engineering effort, but it's part of the thing that goes into continuously improving. And where that has a huge impact actually is on utilization, which is a big part of how over time we're able to improve costs and pass them on to customers. So like before Lambda launched the 1 millisecond billing granularity last year, we had tens of engineering years going into improving our cost structure, where we celebrate wins of like 0.1% of utilization improvement, because that's the level it takes.
That was a big one. The feedback we got on that was just phenomenal, and it was that, okay, now I'm going to adopt that. That makes sense, and so and that actually goes to a question I was going to ask you later.
So maybe one last thought on that customer scenario. What I definitely want customers to do is tell us where we're wrong.
That's right.
What they need help from. Like we love that. One thing I've realized about being at Amazon for a long time is when we go into like a debrief meeting, we'll spend maybe the first 30 seconds on what went well, and the next 59 and a half minutes on all the ways we could have done better. So we love constructive feedback, even not so constructive. Be kind, be polite, but be direct. And tell us what else we can do to help.
We stand at the end of every session. It is, I love to hear what you like about it, and that's great. We want to hear that, but tell us how we can do better, and that's our role. I mean, it's a two-way role, but we spend time, tell us the paper, even the little paper cuts. Hey, this would be easier if this were all camel case and not camel case here, snake case here, things like that. And so, I would emphasize that. That's our role, and talk to us if you can find us.
And it's not even necessarily an engineering thing. It may just be an explanation thing.
That's right.
An improved docs,
an awareness,
presentations or things just to help people understand things.
I can't tell you how many times upon customer recommendation I've gone into documentation and done the send feedback, and I will actually send feedback, and the doc team responds immediately I said, the customer said this. Oh, and we've changed docs that way to a ton of it. So just little things like that. So, all right. So we'll you present a lot.
Not as much as you all do.
Well, okay. But you presented enough. Here's a question I had. Someone wanted me to ask you. What is the most memorable moment from presenting you've ever had?
Oh, gosh. I don't know.
I would have worded it as, what's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened? But let's go memorable. So,
I'm stumped on this one. I hate the prep work before presenting.
Oh, yeah.
So this is fun because Eric sent me some questions in the morning and whatever.
Yeah.
He's going to take care of me, right?
Thank you for finishing that. Oh, whatever. Yeah.
But I love the in the moment. It's fascinating to see what people react to. Okay, I did tell a little squirrel joke that maybe the crowd didn't appreciate yesterday. Lesson learned. So that is my most recent embarrassing moment. I guess everybody loves the squirrel.
They do.
Eric, what's your most embarrassing
presentation
thing?
Yeah, a true presenter.
Eric has plenty of it. I've done. Yeah. For me, I've told plenty of bomb jokes. You know what I mean? But I come into speaking with the philosophy of, I don't want to insult people. I'm very careful about the jokes I tell, but I tell jokes. I tell one-figure jokes, obviously. Hey, I do all that. But I just decided I'm going to go for it, and if it bombs, I don't do it in the next one. But I've had plenty of, you lead up, you tell the joke, and there's the punchline, and the crowd goes,
lead balloon.
I was like, oh, that died.
So actually, you reminded me. I did right before the pandemic. I had probably one of my worst ever professional presentations.
Oh,
which,
do tell.
Fortunately, was inside. So we pre-pandemic every year would have a gathering of the field organization. Our sellers, our specialists, our SAs. So this was in Chicago, and I did a presentation that was labeled the roadmap of serverless, and I thought, I'll present what we did over the last year or so. And the sales field was ticked off at me because they wanted to know what we were going to do next. They wanted to be better prepared to talk with customers, and literally half of them walked out after my first 10 minutes. It's okay, wrong message for this amazing audience. So I felt bad. I let them down.
I have a couple times. I get better. But when you see people leave, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
So during pandemic times, when we're all at home doing presentations and there's no even feedback or laughing at you, sending your jokes into the void. So it's nice to be here in person.
Yeah, that's really hard. Okay, so here's another one for you. I took a break with you there for a minute.
Okay.
What? You may not grab the bait. I don't know. So I'll just ask you straight up. What's missing in serverless, in your opinion? And it's not necessarily negative. It could be positive. Here's why we didn't, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Well, servers are missing.
Servers.
You might have heard.
Well played, sir.
Yes, okay.
And a wrap.
I think the area that we have the most active debates about are how do we help enterprises as they're figuring out the new roles and responsibilities and models. We sometimes forget how new-ish the cloud really is.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, it's like I don't remember who if it was Thomas Watson or one of the early computing people. I think the world can have 7 computers. The idea of computers as a service rather than as a thing you own, that's very old in our industry, but. It's a big transition for many customers to go from where they had roles that, were responsible for data centers and for the supply chain of populating them and for managing those and application developers to now something like serverless and say Lambda in particular, where, that same person who writes the business logic may be writing the SAM template, may be configuring the IAM, or maybe not. So how we go about building a set of capabilities that make it easy for enterprises to have the governance that they want, the excellent security that they want, while still being super agile in building applications I don't think we've cracked that nut yet. We keep trying. I think a good test of that will be one of my Nirvana dreams that we'll know sort of as we get there is when more chief information security officers are challenging their teams to build everything with serverless. Because I think the ability to have a well-controlled, governed, secure environment is actually much higher with serverless, because so much of that is about configuration controls rather than in the old days when you had to write that as software into your application. So we haven't won them over where they're challenging all of their development teams and platform teams, but I'd say that's another area where we've got all the right primitives, so you can accomplish that. But today you need that PhD in IAM.
That's right.
And we need to bring that down to maybe just a 4th grade education in IAM.
It's interesting. So yesterday I got to join George Mao. George?
Yes.
Capital One. He and I spoke together, and this was the topic. We talked about this idea of our specific topic was using SAM to build in the real world and at enterprise levels, and they are able to use parts of SAM, but because of config and because of adoption and things like that, they're not quite there. But they're on the path, right? They have a mandate, and then George explained it to our group the other day, in the session. Mandate serverless first on everything. And then if it doesn't work, then we back off. And so they're doing strides. So it's interesting to work with them. And I know that we do. We work with these companies every day on how do we help you embrace that? How do we help clear some of that out for you? So it's been a fun journey.
And it's interesting as well, because I came from an enterprise background before I joined AWS, and I was very much in infrastructure, racking and stacking servers. And that's where the light bulb went off. Is like, I want to get rid of doing that. So, but I sort of see that previous tension and previous ways of doing things. But it's interesting also to see how some enterprises have either things on premises or in EC2. And once people get that, they realize that they can actually leapfrog a whole number of layers of the stack. And security is different, but they also realize, yes, we've got to learn IAM, but there's a whole lot of stuff you don't need to do. And once they're sort of comfortable giving over that control, a lot of enterprises sort of breathe a sigh of relief of like, AWS has got that. And I'm loving to see that. And I was chatting to someone actually from the UK government yesterday, and they were saying they are building these modules, the sort of secure little application bits of code, and some of it's in SAM, and some of it's in CDK, with security all built in. And they're wanting to roll that out across multiple government departments because the security team know that that's vetted and they can deploy that and standardize. And that's amazing. Just to lean on tomorrow, Werner Vogels' keynote tomorrow. We've got Matt Coulter from Liberty IT, and he's talking all about CDK, and something passionate about that I've written about as well is all well architected, where you can build best practices into your serverless applications. And Liberty IT have literally productized the well architected journey, and it's amazing. So I'm looking forward to hearing that.
I think that journey from infrastructure being a physical thing, but also the way that those people provided this amazing service to their enterprise of governance and security, it just happened to be implemented more at that physical level up. What we have to do is make it easier for them to continue to provide that great governance and security support for their enterprise, but now using these sorts of tools. And I also love the Liberty story because not only is the way they're able to use infrastructure as code for them as CDK as kind of a security and control point, it also simplifies all of their application developers because they don't have to figure out all the right patterns themselves. They also have a great place to start. So it really is, I think, the kernel of many best practices in an enterprise.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to steal Matt's thunder, but I will tell you that he does have one SAM slide as well. So he has promised me that.
I have no problems with SAM. I actually love SAM.
I know you don't. I'm just saying.
It's just the scary little rodent.
See, I know. Yeah,
and I get Matt's going to be on Serverless Office Hours tomorrow. We're going to actually speak to him directly after the keynote. So
that's right. That's right.
Well, don't scare him by wearing them.
Well, he's actually asked me to. So maybe, you're projecting your opinion.
Thank you. Yes, you're right. I should be more inclusive of
all animals.
All animals. Yes.
All right. So here's one. It's kind of an interesting question. And I was trying, when they asked me, I was trying to think, how would I answer that? And so I'm going to let you go first. What's been the biggest surprise on each side, I guess, in adoption of serverless? What's been the biggest surprise as you talk to people as they adopt it?
Somebody told you my answer to this really is embarrassing, right? Just utter raw foolishness.
Turn it up.
Okay.
Jennifer, turn it up.
So
I mean, mute this, please.
or so yeah.
Okay. Was that a sentence?
Yes, it was. You
Okay.
weren't able to hear it. Should I repeat it?
Would you like me to sign it for you? As you...
No.
Okay, go ahead.
So, a little bit of history. When Lambda was first being contemplated, I led our block storage offering, EBS.
Okay.
And at that time, the way we organized was that was part of a storage organization that also included S3. And I don't know if it was initially why Tim Wagner was hired, but Tim came in and quickly became the person working on the idea that became Lambda. And I'll probably get the initial name wrong, but where I had heard about it was as S3 Compute.
Okay.
And the idea was there are lots of common operations where you upload something to an S3 bucket and you want to do a little computation. Like the one that made sense for me was you upload like a product image. And you may want to recompress for greater efficiency.
The hello world of serverless.
Yep. You may want to have a few standard sizes.
Right.
You may want to slap a product logo on it. I was like, fantastic idea. Like, that's great. Let's go launch. But as Tim and Ajay started evolving it, they changed it to be more of a general purpose compute platform, which I have to admit I was pretty skeptical of. And I even gave them some like really feedback in one of our annual reviews, and I was just blitheringly wrong.
Did you ever at one point say this will never work?
I never went that far.
Okay.
It was more like, why are we investing so much in all of that? And the epiphany for me came because, of course, after the fall, there's a rise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
After, my background's in infrastructure and distributed systems. And after about 6 years of leading EBS, where I just kept seeing my own engineering teams were making the same repeated mistakes. It's like, oh yeah, I wrote about that one 3 months ago. And that's haven't seen that one for a year. And I just thought it's too hard to build distributed systems that take full advantage of the cloud.
Yeah.
And I was really disappointed by that. Because one of the best things about the early years of AWS were all of the customers who were able to do stuff economically that they had never been able to do before. Like if you think about it, one of the biggest places AWS disrupted was the traditional venture capital model.
Yes, absolutely.
Because before AWS, if you had an idea, you had to go raise a few $1 million, buy your Sun equipment, your big relational database, and some expensive colo, even to test your idea out.
Now you're a developer in a garage.
Yep.
Same tools.
Pennies on the dollar.
Yep.
And so it was so rewarding to see customers, test their ideas out without having financial outlay. But they still had to have quite a bit of computer science experience. Like you couldn't just be a hobbyist to build something like that. And so between feeling like we were missing out on that next sort of quantum level of enablement and depression out of all of the mistakes we were making, I started kind of looking around to see, is there a better paradigm? Is there a new abstraction level that people can build at? And that's when I was just blown away by the breadth of applications people were building with Lambda and serverless. It was like, I was wrong. Can I join the fun? And that's when I moved over to serverless 4 years ago.
I had no idea.
Oh,
that's an interesting story.
What,
you've seen the light.
Yeah.
Tell me later what you thought I was going to say.
Yeah.
I didn't have to embarrass myself.
No, I didn't. Yeah.
Great.
I was just thinking the Sam Squirrel suit. That's all I thought.
I think it's funny as well how as sort of Lambda becomes more and more useful, and I think it was Werner last year in his keynote said, or maybe even Andy, said, Lambda is used in more than half of all build pipelines in all of AWS. I'm not sure if it's all
Amazon.
of Amazon, or in all of Amazon.
Yep.
So literally more than half of all software deploys in Amazon use Lambda.
Yeah.
And that sort of struck a few chords with me because often we think, or customers think, well, we're using Lambda functions and that kind of thing. But there are a huge number of AWS services who are using Lambda in the back end, and you have absolutely no idea that is. You're just consuming some AWS service as a service, and Lambda is happening in the back end. And also the huge number of SaaS providers who on the back end are using Lambda at ridiculously significant scale, but you would never necessarily know that's happening. And it's sort of testament to it that you've got this amazing compute capability that you can use as a customer, but you can also AWS users and the SaaS partners use behind the scenes. You would never know this sort of ubiquitous compute.
Well, it's especially rewarding to see a lot of that internal usage because our culture is engineers get to decide. That's right. There's no top-down mandate. And we haven't done extensive surveys, but I think part of it is because another part of the Amazon engineering culture is if you wrote it, you carry the pager for it.
That's right.
And our internal developers see, like, I get a lot less on-call if I'm outsourcing to Lambda a whole bunch of these, operational maintenance things. So it's really nice to see people vote with their feet.
Yeah, I agree with that. One more question for you. We have time for one more before we wrap it up.
Sounds good.
This is the deepest one.
Uh-oh.
All right, and this is not me asking. Remember,
you've already got me wrung out.
This is from
talked about scary animals.
This is from the crowd coming in.
Strategy.
Guilty pleasure TV show. What do you watch that you'd rather not everybody know?
We have a big audience.
No, it's just a couple people. Yeah, we'll mute this. We'll edit this out.
I was going to be more guilty because this is going to come with an ask.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So,
well, hang on. I don't know if I want to commit to that.
Oh no,
we're in the boat. Let's go.
This is going to require some deep internet spelunking.
Okay.
So my first full-time software engineering job was in 1990, and for any TV fans, part of what you'll recognize as special about 1990 is that's when Twin Peaks came out.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
And a good friend at work and I watched it together, and we were blown away. And not just blown away by the show, but by how many layers deep of cultural references and this and that, the fact that they had half of the cast of West Side Story as different members, and all of the mysteries. And so I kind of didn't work all that hard the next day. I took over a whiteboard and I was drawing this n-dimensional map between all the different characters and subplots, and I built a little database of a graph database using awk, and so
you are a nerd.
I used to be.
No, there's no backing out of that.
Not at all.
Well, it gets more.
Okay.
So we did that for the entire first season, and we kind of kept it to ourselves. And we thought, it's time to share.
Okay.
And so this is pre-web. So this was in the era of Usenet. And we had a friend who was a Usenet node operator. And it was technically within the rules, although he got some flack. We asked him to create, I think, alt.tv-Twin Peaks. And we told him to write the creation message as Coop, I've created this Usenet group you wanted, -Diane.
Okay.
Twin Peaks fans.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So every few years, I have tried to search the internet to find the creation message from 1990 creating the alt.tv Twin Peaks.
All right.
So,
listeners,
internet.
There you go.
Find it.
That's right.
Send it to Eric.
Send it to me, EDJ Geek on Twitter.
There used to be a Usenet archive.
Yeah, there was Deja News, and some large tech company bought them up, and it disappeared.
Now I'm guessing that I wasn't even in computers at the time.
So the other thing that we did, because back then the way you publish stuff was with a char file.
Okay, all right.
I published a char file of my awk script and the hundreds of database entries, and I haven't been able to find that either. So
wow. Okay. So this is
for guilty.
Yeah. That was good. That wasn't what I was expecting. I was thinking Laverne and Shirley.
No, I grew up with that.
I don't even know if anybody. Yeah, that was probably that shows our age right there. Yeah, dealing
with kids, Peppa Pig's, Paw Patrol.
There you go. Okay, yeah, exactly. Yeah, with kids. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's we're at time, and man, I can't tell you. When I sent you the email saying, "Hey, would you come be on the show?" I was expecting like, "Who is this?" and I really appreciate that.
No,
you
I
did.
remembered you were the guy that got me paid. So yeah, I remember.
Or if you don't come on the show, I will sev to you. I'm just kidding. So I really appreciate it. I know you are super busy doing reInvent and in life in general, doing your Awk database. And so, but I appreciate you coming on. Julian, obviously, thank you too. Julian was the last minute. I can jump in, and I'm glad you did.
Absolutely, it's been fun, yeah.
With that, we have one more stream tomorrow. I want to again say thanks to the tech team who always, I think I'm actually prettier and better looking when they're doing it than I am in my basement. So that might be asking a lot. But I want to say thank you to y'all. Tomorrow, Matt Coulter and some other heroes, Matthew Napoli is joining us. And we also have a surprise that I can't tell you about. But they'll be...
Yeah, that'll be... No, I'm not going to say anything.
Okay, I was like, I will tackle you.
He was going to mention the squirrel suit.
Yeah, and maybe there might be a dance-off between the squirrel and the otter tomorrow after serverless office hours. So
11 till 12, well, Eastern time tomorrow.
11 to 12 Pacific
time, where we are.
Yeah.
My word.
Yeah, that's it. You're done. Nothing out of you.
Yeah, can you imagine tomorrow how worse it's going to be?
All right. This is day 3 at reInvent. So thank you very much and have a great day. And we are out. Maybe if I hit out. There we go.